all hear me? How's the sound? I want to make sure. You can all hear?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't
Wait,
quite
here's a
catch
seat.
that.
Yes. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai mi ogur b'halecha, mi yishkon b'har kadshecha, olech tamim u'fuel tzedek, v'dover emet bilvavo. Lo ragal al lishono, lo asa l'rehu ra'ah, v'charpa lo nasa al krovo. Nivzet beinav nimas, v'et yirei Adonai yechabed, nishpa l'hara v'lo yamir. Do we deserve to enter God's sanctuary? Do we merit a place in the presence of God? Then live with integrity, do what is right, speak the truth without deceit, have no slander upon your tongue, do not do evil to others. Make these deeds your own, then shall you stand firm forever. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, bino desher yabitzeni, al mei menachot yinahaleni. Nafshi yishovev yancheni v'maglei tzedek l'man shemo. Gam ki elech l'geit salmavet, lo ira ra ki ata imadi. Shiftecha u'mishantecha hema yinachamuni. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Your mother, your grandmother, a very, very visual person, you told me. She had, as they say, a good eye. She could see things and how things fit together. She would assemble sweaters that way. People would come over to your house. It was her in-home business. She ran the business out of your home. And people would bring pieces, and your mother would immediately be able to see how the pieces fit together to make a beautiful sweater. And it was immediate. She could see it right away with her eyes. And so let me start by telling you what I see. I know what she could see. I see a family where your mother was the elder generation of 4 generations. A family that loves each other, and a family that is very proud of each other. I see grandchildren who love their grandmother, because she was supportive of them and encouraging of them and affectionate with them. And I see 3 of you, the first generation of this family to be born in America, who had a unique upbringing, but who emerged as independent people who took the initiative in their lives. That's what I see. They're seeing and they're seeing. Let's talk about what your mother's family saw, what Ella's family saw in Poland in 1939 is they had to get out. That's what they saw. They weren't waiting for a German occupation, and they weren't waiting for a German invitation to leave. They left in the middle of the night. They saw that the future in the old country was not going to happen for them. Your family spent time in hiding, spent time in labor camps in Siberia, ultimately in a DP camp after the war, and then on to America. Your mom had been raised in an affluent family in Poland. They had wealth. But what she saw was that all that wealth could go away overnight, that the wealth couldn't be taken on their backs or in their suitcases as they escaped, and that her family would start again. As the youngest daughter, Ella was very close to her elder sisters and very close to her parents. She was doted on, sheltered, perhaps because she was the youngest, and she was very fortunate to always have someone looking out for her, to protect her her entire life. Her parents, her sisters, ultimately your father. Their families had known each other, knew of each other, they hid together, and ultimately she and your dad married. He knew people here and they moved here. They were very different people, your parents. But he adored her, and he provided for her, And they were very comfortable in their roles in life with each other. And they drew out their identity to a certain extent from their roles with each other. He took care of the earning and the bills, and she was at home for you, and she preferred it that way. She preferred to be in her own spaces. She was a wonderful cook. She kept a very clean and ordered home. He made things easier when he could, but he also worked very long days, 11 and 12-hour days. The neighbors loved her. She loved visiting her neighbors. As I said, she was comfortable in her own element, in her own neighborhood. She was less settled when venturing beyond her immediate environment. Your mother was kind. Other people adored her. She had a quick wit, even to the end of her life. Soft-spoken. She didn't want to ruffle feathers. She just wanted to do her own thing. Your neighbors would come over for her food. They would enjoy sitting with her in the yard together. And it was very clear for many of your neighbors that their entire experience of being Jewish was due to their exposure to your mom and your dad in your home on Shabbat, as well as other times. It was always very clear where your mother's priorities were: the health and well-being of her family, all of you, and that you were getting on and that you weren't getting sick. Family in a larger sense was also a high priority for her. She and her sisters kept in touch always, very close. They talked frequently. She missed them by them not being closer by. Instead, it was her mother-in-law who was close by. Lived in your home, and that created, of course, its own dynamic. Your grandmother doted on your dad, helped you at times, but she and your mom were very different personalities and with very different demeanor. Your mother was a physically striking woman. She was attractive. And yet in the DP camps, she was a lumberjack. Is that rumor true? She was actually a lumberjack. Your mother had a lot of sides to her, obviously. While your mother was somewhat shy, she preferred to stay at home more than going out, your mother was a strong-willed woman. She believed what she believed. She had her likes and she had her dislikes, and she didn't budge from them. She told you the way she felt. You heard it straight, unfiltered. And, of course, she was the world's ultimate worrier. To your mother, worrying was a lifestyle. She had an overwhelming fear and anxiety of something bad happening to you. She wanted to be in her little corner of the world, and she didn't like stressful situations. So she wanted to keep you close, which I know was frustrating. You knew she loved you, and you knew she cared, and if you needed her, she'd be there for you. Larry, you said when you became a widower, your mother was extremely supportive to you. You know, we can love our parents, and we're supposed to learn from our parents, but sometimes the greatest act of love is to understand our parents. Ultimately, that may be the most important thing in a relationship, is to understand a different generation. And all of you tried to understand her. I know that at times growing up, it was very apparent to you that your household was different than other households. Your parents were not born here. You were first generation. But those other households, those more Americanized households, would be hard-pressed to produce a family with as much love and showing up for each other as what happened here in your family. You grew up independent and proactive. Your parents couldn't just help out with homework. They couldn't just pick you up in the afternoon. You had to do that yourself. You had to plan it out yourself. And yet you knew your parents cared for you. Your mom had lost her dad while still pretty young. And then your dad passed 15 years ago, and she did grieve. And she also began to move forward. She kept her independence for years afterwards. And I know as she reached these later years, her worries and her anxiety began to fill up her thoughts in a renewed way. But Marilyn and Giselle, you responded as much and as often as you could, as much as anyone could. You were truly dedicated. You were truly dutiful. Somewhere in that family history, in hearing the stories of escaping Poland and finding their way, of your life story wound up in your family's life, of you growing up, learning and maturing, you two clearly also learned how to do the right thing. And here in town with your mom, you did the right thing. And you always strove to do the right thing for your dad and for your mom. And she lived to see grandchildren, and she lived to see great-grandchildren, and you got your ice skates. I mean, things worked out. You know, all of this encouraging and positive talk that I'm trying to do, you know what your mom would say? Poo 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 can't hurt. She'd be worried about that evil eye. The evil eye is also about seeing. I started with seeing and I'm ending with seeing. You know what? Maybe we can see certain things that she couldn't see. Maybe we can see certain things too. And what I see is a family that you all have great pride in and you take great joy in. And I also see a family that she took great pride in and she took great joy in. Because in the end, you did do great honor to your parents. Today we remember the honor you gave to your mother and to the entire family. She lived with a good name and she died with a good name. I know we have members of the grandchildren, right? The grandchildren are going to come up. Come on up.
Our Grandma Ella was such an amazing woman in every way. Her love for her family, kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids was undeniable, as we were always top of her mind, making sure to worry about anything we were doing at any given moment. She was so sharp and remembered everything up until her last years. Throughout our lives, even though she lived far away, we spoke often and we cherished every minute we got to spend with her and our Grandpa Norbert and always looked forward to our visits. Her and our mom would speak every night on the phone and had such a close relationship, which isn't always the case for a mother-in-law. After my mother passed away, my grandma was such a great source of comfort for us. And knowing we had her in our lives was an unwavering source of love and family tradition. She would often speak to us about our mom and how wonderful she was, and always make sure to keep her memories alive. I'll just tell you guys. We would love coming to holidays at her house with a delicious homemade brisket and matzo ball soup that she would make for us. She would stock up for weeks for our visits, get all of our favorite foods, always chocolate babka freshly baked for us. It was clear how excited she was for our visits, which made them even more special. Who needed sleepaway camp when you can summer with Grandma and Grandpa in Cleveland? Rachel, or as Grandma would say, her sweet Rachie, spent many summers relaxing with Grandma at home. Knitting was a favorite pastime of Grandma's, with the most beautiful scarves and blankets in our houses thanks to her hard work and her skills. Her mosh was the best in the world, and as a little girl I remember her endless tickles and cuddles. It felt like home coming to her for our visits, and we would always cry when leaving her house after a trip to Cleveland. There was nobody more interested, more concerned, or worried about our lives than Grandma Ella. We loved talking with Grandma on the phone, and my girls always loved speaking to her also, and Rachel's too. She was always ending every call after half an hour of goodbyes with "Stay well, all of you, and may your husband Glenn make a lot of good business and a lot of money. We love you all." She would say it over and over again, and it would take a long time to get off the phone, but I always loved our phone calls. We feel so blessed to have had Grandma Ella for so long in our adult lives. From childhood through now, Grandma has been a source of love, comfort, support, and has been a constant role model in our lives. Even though we've always lived states away, there was a great comfort knowing that our sweet, loving, resilient Grandma was in Cleveland, always praying for us or worrying about our happiness and well-being, and was always just a phone call away, eagerly awaiting it. We will miss her sorely in so many ways, but I was so incredibly lucky to have had her this far into our adult lives. May she rest in peace. Love you.
Grandma Ella was sweet and caring, with a dry and sarcastic sense of humor that all of us loved.
Family was the most important thing to Grandma. From making four-course dinners every Friday night for Shabbat, to crocheting afghans and sweaters in her favorite colors, to coming to every concert and event we ever had. Her love for us and pride in our accomplishments was shown.
Grandma's house was an extension of our own. We never had to call first or have a plan in mind when we came over, and when it was time to leave, we would always find her at the front window waiting until she could see the car. Couldn't see the car anymore.
Right. Grandma Ella, you were a force to be reckoned with. Your strong will and ability to tell it like it is something we always admired, and your love and compassion will be missed by all of those who knew and loved you. We will keep your legacy alive through all of the memories we share and by continuing to attempt to recreate the recipes you passed down. And by the way, Grandma, when it comes to measurements, 2 of your handfuls is very different than 2 of ours. May you rest easy. We love you.
On September 8, 2022, Queen Elizabeth II passed away. And on June 27, 2023, the real Queen, Queen Ella, passed away. Grandma, we're a little bit surprised you're actually gone. Every time we've seen you for the last 5 or 10 years, you'd say something along the lines of, I hope I'll see you again. I'm not sure though, I could die at any time. It was crazy, I'd say, Grandma, we're gonna see you in a week. But she was right, life is precious. In some ways her attitude was good. We were able to say goodbye to her many times over. There were times when we thought you were immortal. You lived for 99 years. You survived the Holocaust. You were a petite 5'2" or so, forced to work as a lumberjack in a Siberian labor camp. You were the ultimate queen, and you thought other people should treat you that way too. I can't imagine you taking out the trash, let alone cutting down wood in a Siberian camp. You survived a bout of COVID. I remember FaceTiming with you while you were sick and then looking at Melissa and my mom and saying, this might be it. But you survived and came back seemingly stronger than ever. It wasn't until recently that we found out you were 99. For a long time we thought you were born in 1924, which would have made you 98. But it turns out you lied at some point in the past. We looked back at pictures from your 95th birthday bash, and now only to realize we actually missed your 95th birthday, and we threw you a huge 96th birthday bash. You taught us Polish curse words, but you reliably sounded surprised that I remembered those words. You got offended every time I called you a scorchabit. Our fondest memories of you are the many Shabbat dinners we had as a family growing up. You would cook matzo ball soup and brisket, and we would eat it. You knit us blankets and sweaters, and you loved us more than anything, especially when we looked handsome and beautiful. When we visited you last November, you said, I love you all. And then you looked over at David, and you said, I love that you lost weight. You didn't hold back. You said it like how it was. When Melissa and I first started dating, I had you on speakerphone with us, and you asked me directly, so, do you love her? And Melissa and I hadn't said those words so early into our relationship, but you had no shame. You were the queen, but you loved to call me your prince since I was the only grandson among a number of granddaughters. You loved all of us, but you definitely were a little bit vain and liked status. You loved that I was a doctor and always referred to me as the quote, big doctor, even when I was in medical school. A few weeks ago, I called my grandma on FaceTime and she didn't recognize me. I said, Grandma, it's me, Bradley, Giselle's son. She didn't remember me, and then reluctantly I reminded her of her most proud classification of me. I said, Grandma, it's your grandson, the doctor. And she looked at me and she looked at her aide. She said, the big doctor? She was a worrier. We couldn't tell her anything, where we were going, when we were coming to town, because she worried. In 2017, our parents went to Italy, but they told her they were going to Chicago. When they came back with gifts for her, they had her open the gifts, which said, made in Italy. And she said, and they asked her, where do you think we got these? She said, I don't know, you'll have to tell me. And then when they finally revealed they went to Italy, she looked at them with a straight face and said, "I am dead duck. I can't trust you anything." She didn't know my mom broke her arm because she covered it up despite seeing her every week for 6 weeks. She was full of classic quotes. She would often start sentences with, "Listen," and she would say, "Shoot, oh boy, we'll forget." She would often say, "I need to go somewhere." And when we pressed further, she would say, "I'm going to the throne," meaning the toilet. She would always complain about her stomach hurting, especially in recent years. But she would never turn down sweets, sometimes even sneaking some chocolate into her pockets from the front table at our house. As a family, we'd like to extend our deepest appreciation to Grandma's caregivers for the past few years. Our grandma affectionately referred to you as her ladies. You helped her live her final years with dignity and grace. Finally, there's a saying that the only thing better than a good doctor is a daughter. And Grandma was lucky to have two incredibly devoted daughters who were thinking about how to take care of her all day, every day, how to keep her at home, out of the hospital, and the people she trusted and knew. It was amazing to see you cook for her, do her laundry, manage her affairs, and most challenging, try to keep her sane. In many ways, this is a sad day for our family, but we hope as much as we can look at this as a celebration of our grandma's life and the remarkable impact she had on our entire family.
We're now going to rise for the memorial prayer. Larry? Oh, we're going to hold you.
Thank you.
Except for Florence. Everyone else.
Thank you.
El male rachamim shochen dam romeim ametzei menucha nechona tachat kanfech hashchina במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזכירים את נשמת אתל בת אברהם בפגע שלחה לעולמה בגן עדן תקימנו אתה אנא בעל הרים הסתירה כסתר חנפך לעולמים וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה אדוני הוא נחלתה ותנוח בשלום על משכבך ונאמר אמן.
Alex, I'm going to drop the straps to you. Got it? Make sure we're all here. Grab it. You want to cover it slowly?
Yeah.
You good? Let me just move over.
Tzaddik b'chol derachav hatzur tamim erech apayim u'malei rachamim kamalna v'chusna alavad avanim ki lecha adon haslichot v'rachamim. Adam im ben shana yihiyeh olav shanim yichem ma'yitron lo kolo haya yihiyeh baruch dayan hamet nemit u'mechayeh. Dayan hamet shofet tzedek v'emet baruch dayan hamet shekol mishpatav tzedek v'emet nefesh kol chai b'yadecha tzedek malo yiminecha rachem al plitat zon yedecha v'tomar lo malach heref yedecha Gedol ha'itzav v'rav aliliyah asher inecha b'chokot achol darchei b'nei adam latet
Kidracha v'chifri me'el alav, lahagid ki ashar Adonai tzur yulav latavo. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, yehi shem Adonai mevarach. V'hu rachum yichaper avon v'lo yashtit, v'lo lashiv apo, v'lo ye'er kol chamato. Yashov ha'afar al haaretz keshehaya v'haruach tashuv el Elohim asher netana. The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the soul returns to God who gave it. Grant strength and comfort to those who are mourning. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach yehi shem Adonai mevarach. God gives and God takes away. Blessed be the name of God. There's one lunch level too. If anyone would like to use start the dirt on that side, by all means. There you go.
After spouses and grandchildren, anyone else who wishes to share in the mitzvah may step forward.
We want to offer our condolences
I know,
first
do
to
not
Larry,
fall.
Giselle, Marilyn, Naomi, and Steve, and to the grandchildren. Melissa and Glenn, Rachel and Josh, Julie and Joe, Dana and Ryan, Bradley and Melissa, Ricky and David, Isla, Jake, and great-grandchildren. How many great-grandchildren?
9.
Jolie, Chloe, Juliet, Ruby, Cooper, Hannah, Mason, Jackson, and Sammy.
Right. And 0.5.
1.5. The family will be receiving visitors today following services until 5 p.m. And then again tonight, 7 to 9 p.m. So from here over to the family's Shiva location, which is Sherry Park Apartments, Community Room, Sherry Park Apartments, Community Room 2201, Acacia Park Drive, today until 5. Then again tonight, 7 to 9. Friday, from 12 noon to 4 p.m. Friday is also Sherry Park Apartments. Beginning Sunday, that will be at the Doctor Residence in Solon, 5055 Crofton Road. That's beginning Sunday, 12 to 4 and 7 to 9, and Monday, 12 to 4 and 7 to 9. In just a moment, we'll finish with Mourner's Cottage. Do you have the cards with the cottage?
Yeah.
So we'll start. I may also just stop for okay, let's stop for the mourner's cottage for a moment. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah v'yalma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael ha'agala u'vizman kariv v'yimaru amen Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lomei omaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpahar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudesha b'richu La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiram v'alma v'yimaru amen Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimaru amen Oseh shalom b'mramav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimaru amen Hamakom yinachem etchem b'tok she'ar ve'lei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you mourning today, together with all others who mourn in the house of Israel and in all the world. And we all say amen.
Amen.
It's customary to create an aisle. Let's create an aisle for the family to return to their cars, surrounded by familiar faces. Please allow them now to go directly back to their cars. They'll now be receiving people in the Shiva visitation. But with that, the service is over. We're going to ask you to walk right through the aisle of consolation.
Right through.
As I said, surrounded by familiar faces, but do allow them to go directly back to their cars, as you can now visit with them in the Shiva.
Spouses and grandchildren, please. This will conclude
Bradley?
services here at the graveside. If anyone else wishes to shovel, you're more than welcome to come forward at this time.